World Online Racing is back for another exciting round of the Legacy Division. We're coming up live in China in just a few short moments. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR Legacy. This is going to be a very exciting round at the Chinese Grand Prix. It is myself, Jota, alongside James Head himself for what I think is going to be a very, very interesting event at the Chinese Grand Prix. We are in for what we think could be some interesting event, especially when it comes to the weather around here at this 16-turn track. But James, a couple of Jameses with you actually here tonight. James, it's going to be a very, very interesting one nonetheless, because Chinese Grand Prix always brings some spicy racing.
It will be indeed. Good evening, everyone. Hope you are all doing very, very well indeed on this fine Tuesday evening for Legacy Division. As Jota mentioned, of course, we have got fantastic action beholden us out on track. Of course, we've got short qualifying, we've got the sprint race, we've got the feature race as well. Cracking night ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting race ahead of us. Of course, this is going to be a very good sprint race as well, of course. 5 rounds to go left in this championship, of course, and an impeccable championship it is as well, with how close it is out there in the championship as well. Of course, PSR have been really closing down that gap between them and the Talent Factory. Gap between 232 and 219. Anybody's game at the moment, James.
It is anybody's game at the moment. Talent Factory obviously leading the way by 13 points coming into tonight. They've got possibly argue their quickest lineup and also their most inconsistent lineup in Legend and Rudy Racing as well. It could get very aggressive between them both out on track. PSR in second, of course, in 219. A full rundown of the points as well. Outplayed are only in 154, but they're not entirely out of it either, if both of them have a brutal week. Festival Racing in fourth, with Nexus Racing in fifth. Team Chazoo there in sixth, then Juventus, Valor, Team Valor, WOR Esports, and Summit Racing Team all rounding off the top 10. Very, very good night ahead, I've got to say. Talent Factory looking to try and provide themselves to be the best team in Legacy Division. PSR will be out for revenge.
They certainly will be as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up here. I've got all the conversations happening now surrounding potential rain in the race as well. So that is going to make for some spicy racing, especially between those top two teams with only 5 rounds to go. And of course, potentially some of the drivers are going to be heading through into the challengers as well. So re-priorities are going to be happening as well across the teams. So it's going to be an interesting game of mindsets now for the next 5 races in this Legacy Division, as all of the drivers are out now on circuit to get going. As you said, short qualifying leading into a sprint race tonight, so that is going to make for an interesting affair as well, because all of these drivers have got to get used to a completely different format that they've been used to for the last sort of 9 weeks.
They do, but I think it's going to make the racing that more interesting as well out on track. There are points, of course, available for the sprint race as well as the feature race. We'll bring you up to date in terms of that point system very soon indeed. Team Chazoo's Jensen, by the way, is just starting up on a lap 24.1 through the first sector. He's not looking too bad as it comes down through the right-hander of turn number 5. But yeah, it is going to be a really interesting night, I've got to say, in terms of the racing. We normally get some good racing around this track. I've certainly seen some good racing around this track on the PS side. Not sure about the Xbox side, but Jensen currently in this middle sector not looking too bad. But with the overcast conditions, makes me feel that the rain is going to come in qualifying as opposed to the race.
I think just keep an eye on Chazoo Tom, actually. Both of the Chazoo drivers are electing to go out there as the rain is now falling on circuit by the looks of things. As I saw, I thought, yeah, it is. There is a slight bit of rain actually falling on the circuit, so that fully explains why everyone is now out trying to get a lap done as quickly as we possibly can. Jensen and Team Chazoo in general have gone out first, and to Tom, he's been really struggling in that second sector. The rear snapping left, right and centre, but he has gone fastest in the second sector versus his teammate, but his teammate beating him, as you said, by 0.2 of a second. So here comes then Jensen. This is going to be critical here, because this might be the end of qualifying already before we even get going. As I go through that left-hander now, Jensen's going to come across the line to set the initial lap time of a 1:32.138, but Tom will come across the line now, and he is 0.2 down, and that may be all a testament to that first sector issues that he was experiencing. Nehemiah for WOR goes 4th fastest as Rudy splits the 2 Chazoo drivers, outplayed Racing Ryan going 4th and beating Nehemiah, with then Nico coming across the line for VSR as well. Here comes SLR Simba Rocks 1 as well. Going to be an interesting one here as Choco goes fastest out of anyone so far into the 31s for the McLaren, and Scyther, his teammate for PSR, going 3rd as Simba Rocks 1 invalidates his lap on the last corner, meaning that he is now going to be in serious trouble for qualifying, as NRX can only go 11th fastest with Le Griff on that occasion. Magician also struggling as well, down in 15th fastest as well. well. TV8's Allison coming across the line then. He is one of the last ones to be getting a lap in as well. Stokey is on an outlap. He's well down the field, but Allison going 8th fastest. Critical people got out there quickly, quite clearly.
Yeah, definitely so. Choco out on top from Jensen and second. Skyler there in third in the early part of qualifying. Stokey, by the way, is just starting up on a lap there as well. The FRA man there down in 20th position. Yona, I believe, has left the session, which is why he hasn't actually came out on track just yet. So Yona hopefully will be able to get back in. The rush, though, is on from the PS guys. Yona, unfortunately, I don't think can get an invite because everyone is out on track. I can't as well because my friends is absolutely loaded full. I wish I could with Yona. He would have been in by now if that was the case. But he's there down in 19. Stokey just starting up on the lap as well. But it makes me think the rain is beginning to impact on the track surface. And Stokey there, down in 20th, has probably got the worst of the conditions, I think. And a 24.3 in the first sector is not great, as he now comes to the right-hand return number 5, but that rain is getting harder on the track.
Yeah, and of course, with the rain falling harder, means that it's going to get particularly tricky, especially through these medium to high-speed left and right-handers. He chucks the car in, the rear wanting to step out, but the car, you can see there, the rear stepping out once again, but still able to hit his apex ever so slightly, just missing it, though, going through that particular corner. Stokey, though, of course, is going to be a massive disadvantage versus everyone else here, as we've got Sector 3 yellow flags wave for slowing cars, I believe, going into the pit lane. I'll try and figure that one out. Going through the right-hander of turn number 14, then, of course, this is going to be where it's going to be particularly critical for the next set of drivers here, because it is going to be that long right-hander, that right at the end of the straight here. That corner is where we're expecting the majority of racing to be happening at turn number 14. Of course, turn 13 is where Stokey just came out of. Going into 14, then, hits his breaker marker probably a little bit earlier, just to anticipate for potential locking up. Maybe the tyres getting a little bit colder in these temperatures. Then, through that left-hander, and that Red Bull for TV8 will be hoping to get something on board. In the top 10 would be ideal as he comes into the sprint race, comes across the line, and look at that. That is a real testament to the conditions seriously deteriorating. He goes P18 and for some reason decides he's now going to do a little bit of a T-bone in the middle of the track. I wonder why that happens. Anyway, there we are. He's back up and running there, 33.3.
You see some very strange things in qualifying around here in China. That might have just topped the whole lot. I think Stokey, I'm not sure if he was expecting us not to go on board with him potentially with that lap, and then he was going to try and make a dart for the pit lane, literally coming in so he can save the conditions of the tyres. But he's down in 18th position, a 33.348. These are the worst of the conditions, as I mentioned. The final man out on track, bar Yona, who I think is now getting a lobby invite back in, as DRS has been disabled now out on track. So DRS now disabled. It could mean one or two things. It could mean that the drivers obviously retire in the pit lane. Otherwise, they could also go out for a set of intermediate runners. Yona has managed to rejoin the session. He will have to go out on a set of intermediate compound and tyres. But we could also see drivers, if there's rain in the race, a lot of drivers could go out on a set of inters, and it will give us a very, very good pace angle in terms of that leading up, of course, into the sprint and the feature.
You're absolutely right. I think that's the bottom line of it now. The drivers are going to be going out there to do the best that they can in these conditions and try and learn the standings. So they're not going to improve on their lap time. So if they do end up crashing out, it's going to be no sweat off their nose, of course. They still will be able to complete the sprint race, which happens just after this 18-minute qualifying session. So Jonah does manage to get back in. Simba Rocks 1 invalidates 2 laps in a row and can't set a representative lap time at all now, can the SLR drivers. But talking of irrespective lap times, Talent Factory, their pressure keeps building on the team that at one point looking like they were going to be taking a clear championship. They've got one driver in 4th challenging PSR in 1st and 3rd, but their other driver, Legend, 14th place. He's going to have a magnificent sprint.
He has to have a magnificent sprint, I think. If it is a dry sprint, which I hope it is, Legend will carve his way through the field. However, I remember very vividly in PSGL, the other big league, of course, that is on the PS side, Legend took the field apart by 20 seconds in the Circuit of the Americas race in Season 32 of PSGL. So if that is anything to go by, and if he matches that form, he could be one to watch out for. Down in 14th, do not rule him out potentially of a very good result. Magician there down in 17th as well. I think he hit the worst of the conditions as well, the Aston Martin man. And him there on a set of soft compound tyres, 33.3. Very disappointing from the NOX perspective. Of course, they've got Le Griff ahead by a good 0.6 of a second. Le Griff making his first appearance, of course, here in Legacy Division tonight. Magician, though, in 17th. Disappointing. Hope he can sprinkle a bit of magic, though, from 17.
Jonah then leaving the pit lane on those soft tyres, which is a curious thing to do as well, considering the puddles are now starting to form on the circuit. So I suspect the intermediate tyre would actually be faster for Jonah, and actually gives the Juventus driver at least an opportunity to try and understand what the conditions would be like if indeed it does rain in the race and or the sprint. That's going to be the question anyway. I suspect Juventus are going to ask him to come back in and get another set of intermediates on and at least just have a go out there as PSR Scythe, of course. Now, we're not expecting any improvements now, of course, so these drivers are all just going to get an understanding of what the track feels like with their setup whilst it rains, and I'll give them the best opportunity for the race, of course. And it's pretty critical as well, because this circuit, it's really, really difficult on tyres in general anyway, but of course if you get your setup wrong, you're in a real sticky spot, because there's not much in the way of runoffs, especially in that second sector where you won't lose too much time. So, you know, this is a good critical opportunity now for these drivers to get a set of inters on and just experience their setup alongside a circuit that is really greasy. So watching Cypher basically drifting around turn 3.
Yeah, through turn 13 at the hairpin there. My word, he was spinning the car. Tokyo drifting coming through the hairpin there. Fantastic, though, and fantastic car control. And you mentioned there about the tyres. On a set of dry compounder tyres, it's around 5-6% per lap around here on a set of medium compounder tyre. Even worse on a set of softs, it's something like 8-10% actually on a set of soft compounder tyres. That's certainly for the PS guys. I'm not sure if that is replicated, though, on the Xbox side. But the intermediate compounder tyres, of course, it can dispose of 25 litres of water every single second out on track. If it is going to be intermediates for the sprint, which I've had a look at, and the OP team manager of Visuals has confirmed no, there's going to be no rain in the sprint. There is going to be rain, though, in the feature race. So that is a confirmation in terms of the conditions out on track. Skyler has just started up on an lap, but invalidated through the final couple of corners. The intermediates as well, in terms of their tyre wear, they're about 4 or 5% a lap. They're pretty much like a set of hard compounder tyres around here. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if drivers just stick out on a set of inters and try and do laps. Of course, we're not going to see any improvements bar from Simbarox and Yona if they get a full lap in.
Opportunity knocks then for the WOR drivers here, as they may elect actually to start racing with each other to just give themselves some more opportunities to test the intermediate tyres in racing condition. But at the moment, looks like to me Diago Silva's actually getting out of the way of Nehemiah and just focusing on the lap times. Of course, you know, it gives them an opportunity really for the drivers to sort of work with each other, try and get an understanding of these conditions, not just in a racing spec, in a driving spec, but in a racing spec, as SLR Jammer's going for a real wide entry going into turn 1. This is the last place you need to go. We're going for the later apex into 2. So this is a really good opportunity. Just a bit under 6 minutes to go in this one, James. You've got to think about it now. It's a good opportunity for the drivers to work with each other here and actually race each other and just get that understanding of what it's like to race in conditions like this, because that race is obviously going to be pretty important, because it's usually quite difficult to race around China, isn't it? But with the rain, it's going to make it that little bit more interesting, and opportunities will open up. So surely they're going to take the opportunity to work with the team and get some experience out there with 5.5 to go.
Yeah, they're going to have to, I think. They're going to have to. And obviously, with that experience comes reward, I think, within the race as well. That's what the drivers are going to have to focus on in terms of these laps and the set of intermediates, because it'll be very, very good, I think, from a team perspective as well, to actually get a little bit of data on the board, just try and work with Jam, by the way, in the middle sector, 6 seconds down on his dry lap time. So that just comes to show the level of conditions around here. In terms of the wet, I think it's around 9 to 10 seconds difference around here from a set of softs to a set of intermediates, as Jam is on the run down in towards turn 14. But yeah, it is going to be, it could be a potentially fascinating night, I think. Of course, we are going to have rain in the race. We are not going to have rain, I don't think, in the sprint. So that is going to make the drivers and the teams wonder, what on earth do they do in terms of the setups? If they put on a fully dry setup, they're going to struggle in the feature race and they're going to excel in the sprint. If they've gone half and half, they're going to do quite well in the sprint, quite well in the feature. If they've gone for full wet setup, you're pretty much messing up your chances in the sprint race, which is less points, obviously. And then, of course, cascading that into the feature race, where you will have the best setup and the best tyres as well. So drivers have got to think very, very carefully about their setups.
Yeah, it's pretty critical as well, because these drivers are all going to be out of their way to try and get a good lap in, or at least get some experience out there. VSR Lucas is really struggling out there at the moment in the intermediate conditions, actually hitting the gravel track going out of turn 4. So, you know, that number 21 Mercedes is just going to be keeping an eye on that one, obviously, in the race. But you're absolutely right. You've got to think about the strategy here, because surely the priority here is not going to be the sprint. It's going to be that main race, because why prioritise a smaller race and then lose time in the rain where the points obviously the sprint points matter, of course they do, but dropping points in the sprint to gain better points in the main race is obviously going to be the priority, surely. So if anyone is prioritising a dry setup for the sprint, they're really setting themselves up for failure, in my opinion. And if anyone, you know what, I'm setting myself up for failure there, as I'm just expecting the person to set themselves up with a dry setup winning the race, I'll be honest with you. As we're just seeing Lucas again losing it, going through turn number 14. So he comes across the line 12.5 seconds down on his fastest lap in the dry. And crucially as well, I'm just keeping an eye out at the moment on Talent Factory, and speaking of which, Legend has just retired in the pit lane. The Talent Factory are not setting their drivers out on the intermediate tyre, so they're not particularly bothered about getting that experience at the moment of the intermediate tyre. They'd rather just sort of sit in the pit lane, wait it out, and get ready for the sprint. So they're obviously prioritising this idea of why get yourself in the mindset of a wet race when you've got to get through a dry race first.
Yeah, definitely. So I think from the perspective of the drivers as well, they're going to have to really, really focus now. From a Talent Factory perspective, I think that's actually genius from what they're doing, because I don't think they've probably realised, and I don't think people in the comment section have realised either, they've actually saved a set of intermediate compounder tyres for the feature race. And that, if there's safety cars in the feature race, is going to look like an absolute stroke of genius a little bit later on. Mark what I've just said there, and let me know if that is the case, because if I get that right, and Talent Factory have got that right as well, that would be remarkable, I think. They're in 4th and 14th. Legend hasn't really got much time to waste, I think. He's obviously back in the pit lane. Rudy is just going to sit there, I think, relaxing, probably listening to a bit of music, I think, in the off period. But they all set up, I think, for a very, very good feature race. Certainly from Legend's perspective, I know he's a master in the intermediates. Rudy, as I've just said, that has retired now in the pit lane. So clearly Talent Factory, when other teams are getting the practice out on track, it can be a negative thing, I think, from a Talent Factory thing to not get that practice. But if they've been practicing in the wet previously, before we've actually came into the lobby, they will have not had their first experience in terms of the wet weather. And that, again, could be a stroke of genius from them.
Going to be interesting to say the least on that one. Of course, that extra set of intermediate tyres, you have to point out, is going to be particularly critical at a circuit like this one. It's a high-deg circuit, a bit like Britain is the Chinese Grand Prix, and that will make for an interesting spectacle, of course, if that safety car happens, and it is very much possible if we're in for intermediate to wet conditions like this one, because that crossover period has been particularly difficult for some of those drivers, one of them being one of the VSR boys in Lucas, up in 7th at the moment on 32.4. Just behind him, TV8's Allison on a 32.449 himself as well, and then a couple of tenths down, outplayed Racing's Ryan with a 32.637, and 1,000 slower is Nehemiah for WOR. WOR actually having a good showing tonight in 10th and 11th. They could be in for a good sprint there, as we're just seeing Choco getting a bit of a tank slapper going through 3. That corner is going to be particularly dangerous if people are prioritising the dry setup, that's for certain. But, you know, back to WOR, you know, really good opportunity for them. It looks like one of the Mercedes has gone as well. It looks like Shazoo Tom has also retired in the pit lane. One of the Mercedes went.
Yeah, it was Lucas on the right-hand side of the track. I think he avoided damage with the wall, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it was right side end plate damage there on the car, but he was facing the wrong way. He's got the car back going again, which I'm glad to report. They are 6th and 7th BSR. Very good showing from their perspective. But with Shazoo being 2nd and 5th, Jensen and Tom well up there. Jensen saying, by the way, in the chat as well, in the Discord, saying, how on earth have I managed to get 2nd in this qualifying session? And I think given his form in recent weeks, he's probably wondering himself, and probably wondering in the comment section as well, why he's got 2nd place. Basically, he was the first man out on track, and the first guys out on track got towards the top end of the field as we now end, of course, qualifying. Nobody's going to improve in terms of their lap time. Simba, by the way, is a 10th and a half down in the middle sector on his intermediate run of 41.726 is his previous best. So you're trying to look to improve as the sun now begins to actually come through the clouds. The rain is just beginning to ease towards the end of the qualifying session as well. But Choco out on top, Jensen 2nd, Scudder then third. Never in doubt, really, from the PSR perspective, 1st and 3rd. As Simba comes to the line, doesn't improve in the end. And Yona is coming through 3,000, up coming through turn 13. But Choco, Jensen, Scudder, top 3. And I've got to say, PSR have did a fantastic job in that qualifying session. They were pretty much the first guys out on track. The first guys out on track in the end get 1st and 3rd.
Yeah, you know, Jensen asking the question of how that he's second. It's because he's second fastest. He's absolutely deserved of his position, regardless if I'm asking that question. We've got Allison coming across the line then to finalise his bit in qualifying as he sets the lap time 9.5 seconds slower, obviously on that intermediate tyre. Lucas, in the end, finishing that 32.4. We're wondering how he survived that one as well. Well, loads of tank slappers for him as VSR Nico letting Scyther through on his lap, of course, as he just manages his tyres towards the end of this one. And what has been a good showing for PSR in this qualifying session are going to be leading the way in the sprint race, but Rudy is going to be hot on the heels, and Legend for Talent Factory has got to make some ground up, and that sprint is going to be crucial. It's difficult to overtake though in the dry, so it might all be about that later race. We'll have to see what happens then. Comes across the line to Scyther, wraps up his qualifying in third place. We are going to be in for, I think, a particularly interesting Chinese Grand Prix, as we'll then take a look at the grid then for the sprint race ahead of us tonight, and it is going to be that pole position for Choco. Great result actually from the Brit. He is very happy to be the only person to get into the 131s, beating Jensen by just a little bit over 2/10, and it's Scyther with a 0.346 down, then Rudy, Tom, Nico, Lucas, Alison, Ryan and Nehemiah rounding out the top 10. What is a good result actually for WOR. Towards the bottom it is Diago Silva for the other WR driver in 11th, and Nando Jr., Legriff for NRX, followed by Legend, Jam, Tijin, Magician, Stokey, Simbarox 1 and Jonah not setting representative lap times, setting their lap times on the intermediate tyre. Really interesting set of events ahead of us then, I think, James, on this one. We're going to be looking here at what could potentially be a little bit of a mixed bag going into the sprint race. Not too long before we sort of discuss it, early favourites suggest PSR are on the front, but Legend is going to be powering through the standings to try and get up there.
Oh, he will be. He will be. He's down in 14th position. Do not rule him out in the dry, let alone wet conditions. He will be one of the quickest guys, I guarantee it, out on track. And I think he will be one of the ones to watch out for. Magician, they're down in 17th as well. He's a one that we've seen in previous weeks in terms of great racing, so he's going to make the progress through the field as well. I will get up the point standings, by the way, which we haven't actually run through, I think, so far tonight, which is why I'm just looking down on my end, so I apologise if I'm not looking at the screen right now. But I am going to have a look at the point system. When I can find the point system, there we go. For the sprint, I believe we have 8 points for the win, 7 points for second, 6 points for third, then 5 points for fourth. Fifth gets 4, and then 6th gets 3, 7th gets 2, and then 8th gets 1. So that is the sprint points there, pretty much like real life.
Going to make it for a very interesting one. We're back very shortly for continued coverage of this Chinese Grand Prix. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division in what is going to be a very interesting event. We have got the Chinese Grand Prix, 15 seconds to go. It is myself, Jota, alongside James Head himself. We're going to be in for an interesting one very quickly. PSR on front. Are they the favourites?
They should be. They should be. Jensen there can really mix it up. It's going to be an interesting one.
Seeing what we've got coming up, those drivers are on the grid and they're ready and raring to go. And with those drivers lined up, we're going to be counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. The drivers, here they are on that inside line. Jensen gets a mega start. He's immediately putting pressure on the McLaren of Choco, and he might go for the dive up the inside, but he likes to tuck in down in the side and gets behind him then and holds on to P2. We've got battle happening with Rudy and Tom, as well as Allison and Nico also battling as well for VSR. Already got a spinner at the back. It looks like Stokey's gone for a spin. That's the TV8 driver, as well as Legend up to 11th, as well as plenty of other drivers all around the field swapping and changing positions. And we've got Rudy really battling hard at the moment for that battle for P4 alongside Tom, who's really trying to make a lunge here comes Lucas down the inside line, going into turn 4, and can't get his car in a stable position. He's actually in trouble with Allison, who makes the move and puts himself up to P6.
It is very scrappy racing further down the field as well. Jam, Nando, Diogo Silva, LeGriff, Magician, Stokey, all pretty much got caught up an instant further down. Lucas, by the way, still side by side with Allison, and that is how you turn a negative into a positive. Through the left-hander now, turn number 10, trying to get the job done. Allison forced up on the curb, and now Namai is going to try and take full advantage as well. Nico as well, losing positions off the start. He's also taking 2 positions off this race start, and also side by side between Legend and Ryan, who's gained 4 positions off the race start so far. Namai, though, can't find a way through, and Allison. Lucas back through, and he's into 6th. Fantastic move. Chocolate there leading the way. Jensen in 2nd. Scarter there in 3rd. PSR currently holding sway in 1st and 3rd. But huge drama further down the field. Diogo Silva, I know, has got front wing damage. I think there's an AlphaTauri further down the field as well. Got front wing damage off the absolute chaos that was turn 3 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, keeping an eye out on Nico as well as effectively pushing Nehemiah around that corner at the moment. So Nehemiah obviously just thinking about the long-term strategy here, because they've really good start for Nehemiah as well. Up 2 positions from his starting position of 10th. Diego Silva, on the other hand, starting 11th, down to 17th. It's an appalling start for the other WOR driver, who are looking so sharp at the end of qualifying. But now they've got to prioritise and really think about that race here. Nehemiah is putting that little bit of defensive effort here against the VSR driver of Nico. Down 3 positions as well. He's not had the best start as VSR. Nico, as obviously they managed to eclipse into the 100 points as a team, so they're going to want to try and keep their push in the standings if they can help it.
Oh, Legend, good for an absolute dive to the inside line on Ryan. Further down the field, tries to get the job done, and in the end has to force the door shut on the outside line. Legend, there is ways and means to get the move done. That was one of them, and Legend through, and he's into 10th position. So we gained 4 positions now off this race start. Simbarox, by the way, absolutely carved his way through the field. He's there in 12th position, 7 positions off the race start. Yona gaining 6 as well. Time gaining 3 for Juventus Racing. Good job from them early on. Nico there in behind on Namaya, but Legend, there was rough and tumble in towards turn number 7 and 8, but Legend in the end gets the job done. He's into 10th, and now he's got his full eyes on the points, certainly the lower end of the points, with Allison, Namira, and Nico all ahead of him doing battle. There's a yellow flag, and that is Magician round at the back of the field. Yeah,
of course, on the soft tyre as well is Magician. Looks like Diogo Silva, Jam, and Magician have all pitted at some point as well. So fresh mediums on for Diogo Silva. Softs, though, on for Jam and Magician, which is a bold call because those soft tyres do burn out after just 5 or 6 laps. So they're going to have to manage those tyres towards the end here, as Juventus Racing have gone for a little bit of a swap, and Tidjin now in front of Jonah up into 13th place. Choco no doubt getting the fastest lap of the race. He's starting to pull a bit of a gap now between him and Jensen, as the DRS is now enabled for all of the drivers to really begin their push, and a train of DRS will be happening from first all the way as far down as 16th as it stands here in this little battle here, with Nico just ever so slightly pushing that WOR Alfa Romeo around the track here, still putting pressure on. And of course I think that VSR driver will be very conscious about that Legend at the moment, who of course is on a real push himself to try and get into a better position ahead of the big race a little bit later on tonight.
Yeah, he has 16% of ERS inferior compared to Nico ahead of him. Nico just using up a bit of ERS, and Maya's on 44% as well. So Legend has got comfortably 30% more than Maya at this early stage of the race. The leaders, by the way, in terms of their ERS as well. Choco, well, he's sitting pretty on 94%. Jensen on 34, so he is having to use it up a lot to even keep up with Chocolate at this early stage. Skyler there on 81, and then Rudy 10% more on that on 91, coming to the right-hander of turn number 11, and then through the right-hander again at turn number 12. Looking further down the field, yeah, everyone's sitting pretty much on 8% from 6 downwards. Allison and Namaya are low on ERS. Nico there on 59, and Legend there, as we've already mentioned, on 76. He is using up a little bit now to try and catch on to the back of Nico ahead of him. However, I think Yona is going to go back through on time. The Juventus Racing team side by side once again, the Haas boys, and Yona, I think the Dutchman, on his fellow countryman, is going to get the job done. Time defends the inside line just to cover off Nando, and in the end, Yona through, and he's into 13th, looking quite good. He has had form around here in the past, so Juventus Racing doing quite well.
Nando, though, looking to put a bit of pressure here on the Juventus boys at the moment, as they obviously exchanging positions in order to stay within the DRS of all the people around them at the moment, so don't blame them for doing so, but they'll continue on that little bit of a push here, as we just keep an eye out on that battle continuing with Nehemiah, who's really able to hold his own, but he's currently lag spiking at the moment as he lags back ever so briefly, meaning that he's now at the brink of potentially being out of DRS on Allison at the moment, the TV8 driver, so no doubt he's going to now have to begin a push to try and get back in the DRS, or at least try and get into into a more comfortable position to stay within the DRS, because of Nico and Legend will be very happy to swallow up those positions as and when that happens. While this is all happening, by the way, SLR Jam has gone fastest of anyone so far for Team SLR, down in 18th place at the moment on those soft tyres, and he needs to be careful not to burn them out too quickly, because he could have found himself in a little bit more trouble towards the end of this race than he thinks here. It's a very high deck circuit in the dry.
Yeah, Diogo Silva as well was trying to switch him back out of turn number 13 through the right-hander of the hairpin, of course, where Buemi famously lost all 4 of his wheels further down the field. Of course, in 2011, I think that was. But Diogo Silva is there in 19, trying to fight Jam. Jam is on the quicker tyres, but there will not be the quicker tyres towards the end of the race. Skyler there on the back of Jensen. Shazoo Boy's just beginning to struggle slightly. Tom is certainly lacking in terms of his pace. He's there in 5th, dropping out in a second now to Rudy, and he is within DRS range, but Rudy is using that DRS now to good effect down the straight. So Tom could be the real eye in the needle here and really get caught out by this, as Nando was still on time down and towards that hairpin at turn 13. Gets the job done nicely. So Nando Thuni's into 14th. The PSGL F1 man, of course, and he is through there in 14th time there in 15th. But Choco, Jensen, Skyler currently leading the way. Jensen's doing quite well now. He's actually just beginning to catch up to Choco slightly. However, Tom, I think, is the real cork in the bottle here. He is going to split this pack very soon.
Yeah, Nico's also really starting to put some ground now on Nehemiah. At one point going to 1.5 tenths between him and the Alfa Romeo, but a really poor first sector so far from the VSR man has left him in a position where actually he might be a bit vulnerable from attack to Legend here. Now we know that turn 4-5 is certainly what he likes to consider a potential move. We know that, we saw it earlier on. While that was all happening, by the way, Nando has made the overtake on Tijin, the Juventus man, going into turn number 14, went for the dive. Tijin tried to defend it down the inside line. They did collide ever so slightly, but it was always going to be at a disadvantage to the Haas. And Nando now up to 14th place for Outplayed Racing. Ryan in 11th as well. Still going to be nil points at the moment for Outplayed Racing, starting to lose a lot of ground to the top 2 at the moment. Talent Factory, though, are also going to start struggling here with Legend still in 10th, and he's not able to make any inroads at the moment, and that's all a testament to that DRS train that's really starting to pull all of the cars along here. But Allison is at the brink here of potentially falling out of DRS. Now, he will have DRS in this occasion, but he's got 3, 2, 1 and 0% ERS now, has the Red Bull. And that only means that he is going to fall out of DRS, even with the DRS open. Big lockup, but the DRS train is now split as Legend goes for the dive on Nico. Nico's still going to hold on around the outside, though, and I think in the end he's going to have to tuck him behind.
Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen hand of rage there from Legend, just about getting the job done. He's into 9th. There was a beautiful move, by the way, on Nico. Nico, I think just a little bit of lag spiking here and there just caused that hand of rage slightly. But Legend he's into 9th. He's got Nehemiah, who is a very quick driver on his day, as well ahead of him. But Legend is the quicker of the two, so he should get through into the points quite nicely. He will only pick up 1 point, of course, for Talent Factory. But with Rudy in 4th, Talent Factory currently at this stage only is being outscored a couple of points by PSR. The gap is only going to be, I think, down to 10 or 11 points, if I'm not mistaken. So Chocolate there leading the way, Skyler in 2nd. They'll be picking up 14 as it stands. Rudy there in 4th along with Legend. They're currently in 9th. If he gets that final point, it will be 5 points. It'll actually be a 9-point difference between them both, which means with a 13-point gap, I make it 4 points going into the feature race.
Legend, he finds that corner, turn 5, 6, one of his favourite. Not on that occasion, though. Gets a big tank slapper, and as a result, loses a lot of time to Nehemiah, who is going to be in DRS with a car that does not have DRS, and nor does he have ERS here. So Nehemiah still might be on for some points here, though he's starting to struggle with ERS himself now. 27% as he goes down the straight out of turn 13. He's going to be heading in towards turn 14, and he's going to want to try and get this move done on Allison. Remember, no DRS now available for that Red Bull, but it's going to be interesting to see how Nehemiah sort of battles this one here. Might not be close enough on this occasion, but that gap is only going to shorten with every lap that goes by. The question is Legend going to get the move on Nehemiah before Nehemiah gets the move done on Allison?
Well, I think Legend's going to look behind him as well, because Nico's right there, 3.5 tenths in behind him, and all of a sudden, Allison's beginning to come back into Nehemiah. Nehemiah's beginning to come back into Legend, and then Nico's the one that's starting to go forward, as Yona in the background, I think, is going to pass Simba down in towards turn number 1. The Haasman eases past the Williams in towards turn number 1. Job done from the Aventus Racing man, and he's through there, and he's into 12th position. Simba there in 13th, doing a good job. Nando not too far off the pace either. He's the one to get past Simba, certainly before the end of the race comes. But Choco there leading the way, Jensen 2nd, Skyler there in 3rd. Wish we were covering the top end of the field. The bottom end of the field, though, giving us a lot of good racing. There was a slight lag spike fair, as well on mine from the Maya. Legend there still on the back from 4P9. But Nico there in 10th trying to hang on. Ryan, to be fair, hanging on in there as well. Uppy looking like they're going to score good points, good positions currently into the feature race. Nando there down in 14th, of course, making ground. But Choco, Skyther, PSR advantage so far, and Skyther, I am absolutely convinced he's going to go for the move on Jensen, perhaps this lap around, because he looks a lot closer this time around.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due, actually, to Jonah as well. P20 to P12 in this sprint race. Difficult to do at a circuit like this in the dry, never mind in the wet conditions that we're expecting in the main race coming up in around about 5 to 10 minutes. So this is going to be all about that performance now from the Juventus racing driver. Can he handle this when we get into the race here? As we've got some intense racing happening now between Nehemiah and Legend. He's going to have to go around the outside as the Ferrari to get this one to work, and he's going to have no grip at all because he's going to be put on the curb, but he's still going to try and battle it. But there again you can see there's absolutely zero grip when you're half off of the curb, but Legend is still going to put Nehemiah under pressure here. This is for the final point of this sprint, of course, lap 8 of 10, and he's going to go around the outside then into turn 1, but no ERS is going to be available for either of the drivers going into turn 1. He gets a bit of a tank slapper on the curb, and Nehemiah is going to continue to battle on that outside now going into turn number 3, and they collide. Brilliant. Going into that corner as Legend gets the move done. But is Nehemiah going to do a Legend going into the next corner? We know that this is his favourite corner, is Legend. Is he going to defend it? Nehemiah is going to go down the outside. He's going to go around the outside, squeeze back to the inside line, and that curve is completely taken. Legend in 8th.
Yeah, brilliant defensive driving from Legend in the end to overcome the real trouble, I think, of getting through on the Maya. And the Maya lagging all over the place, I've got to say. But to be fair, Legend, to hang on around the outside when you've got a pretty much lag-spiking car on the inside of you, takes some absolute guts and determination. And in the end, he is Mr. Guts and Determination himself. He's soon down, he's into 8th. Nico now on the back of Nehemiah. Nehemiah just beginning to drop down in terms of the pace as well. He is low on ERS. He's under 10% of ERS. Nico's on 40%. So Nico should make this look a little bit easier. Skyther is again trying to get Jensen this time around. Now going to go for the move. Here comes the McLaren to the inside line. This should be very easy. Jensen's not going to fight this at all. And Skyther now makes the PSR 1-2. Choco there leading the way. And actually Skyther nearly goes into the back of his own teammate on the brakes. Jensen now loops back underneath him. And now they're side by side into the left-hand of turn 15 at the final corner. But in the end, Jensen gets the better run at the final corner. He's all over the back of him. Lap 9 out of 10. This sprint is now beginning to really crack open. Skyther there back through and he's into second. Jensen there in third, and Jensen does not defend that. And in the end, he's got to defend from the man behind because Rudy's beginning to get into this as well.
Shazoo Tom in 5th, by the way, so this is turning out to be a really good sprint for Shazoo. And Rudy, again, breathing down the neck of those front 3 at the moment, and very happy to swallow up a position if a mistake happens. That is for certain here. Nico wasn't able to get the move done on Nehemiah, by the way, despite the fact that he's using overtake out of corners that really shouldn't be. He should be starting to harvest now. Allison, by the way, doing a fantastic job to stay in 7th at the moment. Of course, all those behind him have been battling, but he's got 2 laps to hold on to P7. Couple of points for TVA that would be absolutely wonderful for that team, and Allison able to hold on to P7 despite being 2 seconds down on everyone in front of him and no DRS for perhaps about 4 laps at this point here. He is really holding on and doing the best he can here, but surely the overtake with Legend is going to be inevitable. Legend has been really harvesting his energy the last couple of laps. He's been able to save a good chunk that might give him a nice little bit of boost down the straight going into turn 14 as we've got more people battling towards there. I'm trying to figure out who that one was. Maybe Jensen battling with Rudy at the moment because Rudy is really getting close here. Now he's got over 50% available at his disposal here. DRS enabled for both drivers, but lack of ERS means the Shazoo driver is leaving the door wide open going into turn 14, and that Ferrari gets the move done and dusted, and Talent Factory are going to continue to put the pressure on PSR. Rudy into 3rd.
Jensen will be there, though. He had a mistake coming out of turn number 12. He had a snap of oversteer and that let Rudy right in, and you do not let the Talent Factory man ahead of you whatsoever. Jensen now has to fight, but in the end is getting outdone in terms of pace. Of course, Jensen is going to be one of the F1 Esports drivers going forward. Rudy, I don't think, has made it in towards F1 Esports challenges, but certainly Jensen has. He's there in 4th. Tom there in 5th. There's other F1 Esports challenges teammate, of course, there in 5th. He is going to be driving the Williams, I believe, on the PS side. He's doing a good job. Shazoo are going to be picking up points, but in the end, they're not going to be picking up enough points for PSR because as it stands, Rudy there in 3rd, Legend there in 8th. My quick maths gives me 7 points for Talent Factory, a full 15 points for PSR. So So in the end, they are going to be gaining 8 points, I believe, going into the feature race, which means it'll be a 5-point advantage.
Yeah, Choco would be wise to give Scythe the DRS here. Now he's lost a couple of
Nico.
tenths here. Here as there's Nico and
no.
Nehemiah going into a battle, and Nico has got for a spin for VSR on the final lap of this race, and there is going to be a critical position here in that scenario here, as Allison is still able to hold on to P7 on this final lap here. Choco has left off a little bit of the gas to give Scythe the DRS, then going down the straight to be able to defend from Rude, who himself is struggling with ERS here, but Shazoo are going to be so happy that they've got 2 drivers in the top 5. If Tom can hold on to that battle against Lucas in the end electing not to go for that large battle going down in there, but it is all going to be all done and dusted in this sprint race, as PSR will be happy to hear the words once again. They have a 1 and they have a 2 in this sprint race, with Rudy in 3rd place, Jensen in 4th, Tom in 5th. A great result for Shazoo. Lucas in 6th. Allison holds on to 7th in the end. What a performance from the TV8 driver. Legend rounding out the point scorers in 8th, and Nehemiah were disappointed missing out on the points in 9th. Jonah in 10th with Nando in 11th. What a race actually from Jonah and Nando. They've had a really good race in this sprint. Rocks won as well. What a performance from him as well. Only setting a lap time on the intermediates in qualifying up to 12th. NRX really down the order at the moment, 13th and 19th for them. Ryan rounding out the 2 other outplayed racing driver, Tidge 15th, and then TV8 Stokey in 16th place. WR Diogo Silva never got his race going either after pitting. He's in 18th, Magician in 19th, and SLR rounding out the 20 drivers for what I think has been a fantastic sprint race. We're going to be in for a really, really manic race ahead of us, I think, James.
Yeah, definitely. So to correct myself, by the way, Rudy is in F1 Esports Challenges. People have been absolutely raging at me for not saying that in the comment section, but it comes to show A, I haven't done my homework, and B, I commentate way too much, I think, on every single league, I think, during the week. So it is hard for me to remember. But Jam there toward the line, finishing there down in 20th. Disappointing from the SLR team's perspective. They are hoping to pick up points, of course, as we go into the feature race. But in the end, it is a PSR 1-2, and it sets them up very, very nicely indeed, of course, for that 8-point advantage. Yona gets driver of the day, awarded by the in-game fans as well. But PSR now only 5 points behind Talent Factory going into the feature race. And with a couple of minutes break, I'm sure between them, Choco and Skada will be conversing in terms of what could be potentially a fantastic race, and obviously with wet conditions as well.
Legend will be happy to be up in P8. It's not the ideal position, but a lot better than what it was. So at least Talent Factory can put a bit of a challenge on. Allison, great 7th place for him. Lucas in 6th. Tom and Jensen in 5th and 4th. Rudy, Scyther and Choco running out the top 8. Outside of those top 8s, of course, Nehemiah in 9th. Jonah in 10th. Nando is in 11th with Simba One. Great race for him in 12th. LeGriff in 13th with Ryan in 14th. Tidgeon is in 15th from Stokey. Nico, Diogo Silva, Magician and Jam. We're going to be here for another fantastic race ahead of us in just a few short moments. Keep in touch. We'll be back shortly. Good evening there, ladies and gentlemen, across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. It is myself, Jota, alongside you once again, alongside James Head himself, for what is going to be, I think, a very interesting Chinese Grand Prix ahead of us. A very good sprint led us into this false sense of security. A lot of drivers out there looking so quick, weren't so quick in qualifying. We're now going into the race. It's starting off dry, but we're expecting it to be wet.
We are expecting it to be wet indeed, and I'm assuming that with wet conditions, they're going to come within the first 10, 15 minutes of the race. So if that is the case, we should be seeing around about lap 8, lap 9 in terms of the transition from dries into sort of intermediate compound tyres. Of course, if it comes later on in the race and the sun comes out within the first 6 or 7 laps, it will come toward the back end of the race, and that could mean very, very much in terms of a change up of strategy. It could mean a change up of setup as well. But what doesn't change is a PSR 1-2 from the sprint. Absolutely loving life, I'm going to say. 5 points off, of course, Talent Factory coming into the feature race. It is going to be interesting, especially with Talent Factory 3rd and 8th. Big advantage for PSR.
Certainly is. I mean, talking of PSR, actually, we're in a particular position where we can talk about the standings, because as it stands at the moment, PSR on 219. This is pre the points that have been added, of course, from the sprint race. So if we're talking prior to the sprint, PSR have been really, really nipping at Talent Factory's lead and are really breathing down their neck. Legend had a really good sprint race, but his qualifying was so out of character for TF, and as such, they're under the cosh here going into this race. 5 rounds to go. PSR have got that advantage moving forward now. What are we to expect into this race here? Because we've seen that certain drivers, Choco and Scyther, were making some mistakes in those conditions out there, you know, in the circuit when we were testing and qualifying, you know, testing that sort of intermediate tyre in the wet conditions. They're not going to be 100% clean here. If they make a mistake, it could flip absolutely in Talent Factory's head here.
Yeah, and this is a track, honestly, if you make one mistake, you're going to be on the back foot, I think, throughout the entirety of the race. And Talent Factory would love to avoid that. PSR would love to avoid that. And as well, every other driver, I think, within the lobby as well, would love to avoid a mistake. Mistakes, though, do happen around here in China. It's very difficult in the wet conditions as well. So, with all of that being said, it's going to make it for a very, very fascinating race. Of course, PSR without 1-2 have got that advantage. Talent Factory, though, Rudy there in third is going to be the key, I think, to unlock Talent Factory's race. Legend there in eighth is going to be so much quicker than the guys ahead of him in terms of the intermediates. He is going to absolutely, hopefully, fly through the field. Talent Factory looking to try and get Legend up there as soon as that rain comes. They would have been hoping, I think, for full wet race so they could actually put Legend completely on a wet setup and then just dominate the field like he has done in the past, of course, in the intermediate conditions. But Rudy there in third as well, the Talent Factory F1 Esports man, he is going to look to try and really hold the throne, I think, for Talent Factory. They've only got that minimal championship lead. Outplayed Racing there as well in third. They had a very, very disappointing qualifying session and indeed in the sprint race as well. They finished outside of the points, outside of the top 10 as well, with Ryan having a late on spin coming through turn number 10. They're on 154 points. They're not careful. They're going to be caught by VSR as well, as we're about to get going with 15 seconds remaining. 50
seconds to go. Early indications are suggesting that PSR are absolutely going to be in the advantage moving forward into this race. I'm looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up alongside you folks. We're going to be in for a fascinating Chinese Grand Prix. The drivers are lined up on the grid. And with those drivers lined up, we're counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go. Drivers, here they are. Those red lights went out immediately, and a great start from Juventus Racing's Jonah, already up to 8th, but 3 wide going into turn 1. May lead for a little bit of a challenge from WOR's Nehemiah going up on the inside line. Immediately in the block, so Rudy immediately putting a challenge on the PSR team, but PSR able to hold on quite well, but down the inside line, Rudy will go in that battle, but gets a tank slapper. So Scyther will have the traction going out the corner, and he stays into P2. And here comes Jensen already having a bit of a battle. He may go for the dive going down the inside line here, but Rudy immediately defending it.
He is indeed. Oh, and actually, Skyler, I think, has spun on the inside curve. I'm not sure what happened. There was contact, I think, between the PSR boys, and now there's 3 wide in towards turn number 7. This is not going to work, surely, as Tom tries to hang it around the outside. Allison is all of a sudden in third, and it's Choco, the one that has dropped down the field. Tom now fights the inside line. Jensen got caught up in that as well. Big snap of oversteer as well from Tom. Choco trying to go down the inside line. Not sure what happened there with the PSR boys. I think there was contact, or the inside curve caught them, and in the end, Choco was now under pressure from Nehemiah on that sort of medium compounded tyres. Skyler there in second, but Rudy now in the lead of the race. Skyler in second, Tom in third. Drama early in China.
Yeah, very, very early on. That pressure immediately coming, unfortunately, from Choco, making a mistake. He hit the curb by the looks of things, got a tank slapper. Scyther hit his apex absolutely fine, but had to slow down to avoid colliding with his teammate. But he's decided he's going to make the move anyway and overtakes Rudy immediately. Going down the straight into turn number 14. Rudy's going to go for the dive and tries to put him on pressure, but elects not to in the end. Allison still trying to battle here with Choco. Choco shuts the door. He wants to keep P4, he says in this one, and he does so. Nehemiah immediately making a move as well as Allison getting caught napping. What a move from the WR driver, now up to 5th place in this one. Allison actually gets spin out, ends up getting a bit chucked out wide as a result of that one. But as we were saying here, is Jensen getting into a little bit of a battle with VSR Lucas. He may go around the outside. He's going to miss his apex, may go for the switchback going into 1. It is there. The door is wide open, and Shizu Jensen leaves it wide open. VSR Lucas left around the outside line on this one, and the grip is there on the outside line. But Jensen is able to hold on, no problem at all. If anything, gets into a collision with Nando in that one, in that little battle. And now Nando, I believe, I can't remember, I can't see who it was out there. I think someone's gone for a spin. It might have been Lucas who's gone for a spin in that one. And now Nico has to battle here. It potentially may end up being a battle for his teammate in that one, as Legend and Allison get into a battle, as Legend now up to P6. This is a manic start to this race. Everyone is trying to get their groove on before the rain falls.
Absolute manic, and I tell you what, Yona has just done a 3-wide move in towards turn number 1 as well. The Aventus Racing Man, Thurney's into 10th position, LeGriff there in 11th, and Nico in 12th got absolutely sold around the outside of turn number 1. It was beautiful from Yona. It's a pity we didn't see that on the stream. I certainly caught that, so Yona will be getting sent that later on. For Yona there on the back of Nando was a huge mistake, and Yona's going to take full advantage, and that is him now through, and he's into 9th position. He's absolutely working his way through the field beautifully. Nando, though, is coming back with a much better straight line speed, and now they're side by side down the straight as Yona looks towards the inside line to try and defend fine as well. On the background on Jam is trying to get the job done. That's late on the brakes from the Griff in the background as well, but Yona and Nando are still side by side, coming out of turn 14 into turn 15, and in the end Yona holds the position. Nando runs out wide, and the rain I thought was beginning to fall. I think I might have just seen something else though, as Nico and LeGriff are now side by side, and Nico's shooting again ahead of LeGriff towards turn 1. He is indeed. He's doing his into 11th. My oh my, first 3 laps, and now DRS is enabled.
DRS is enabled. The rain is not falling on circuit. Expecting that the rain should be falling a little bit later on into this race, potentially around about lap 15-16 if people are mixing and matching between the medium and the hard tyre. So that would be the expectation of this one. We may be in for rain towards the end of this race, but of course remember it is very much approximate, and with this game anything can happen there, as we've got a collision involving Nico once again. Nico getting into a collision. Looks like a bunch of people trying to avoid it all there. It looks like Magician's gone for a little bit of a avoiding action on there. So Diego Silva now up to 15th place in this little battle here. There's so much action everywhere. I'm trying to keep up with it, but it is absolutely manic out there on lap 3 of 28.
It is. I didn't manage to catch that though, and I think it was either Ryan or LeGriff who managed to outbrake himself on the inside curb. In the end, Nico was on the inside curb. He got spun round. Tyne also got caught up in that as well. I think he's got right side end plate damage there. The Aventus Racing Man there down in 17th. He's got very minimal damage, but there is damage, I think, on that car nonetheless. His other teammate, by the way, Yona, is right on the back of Jensen running down the straight. And the last thing you'd say to me, Jensen and Yona, side by side potentially. I've seen these guys battle before here in China. It was a great battle as well, and hopefully they can put on a very good show out on track tonight as Nico and Tyne again are side by side into the breaking point though, and Nico, oh my word, has just absolutely sold Tyne for an absolute tipper right there. He's into 17, Tyne there in 18, and if he has got damage, then he's just been absolutely outsold as Lucas now comes to the inside line, and that yellow flag is Simba on the other side of the track through the right-hander of turn number 12, and Tyne must have damage on that car because Lucas has just sold him through the inside of turn 15.
Critical operation error from Talent Factory's Rudy. He has been in overtake for far too long, and I was looking at him and he was just staying in overtake despite the fact that he was on 0% ERS, which tells me he didn't know the button was pushed. So he's now got no ERS at his name and is falling so quickly against PSR Scyther at the moment, which means Tom is able to get closer and Shazoo could be on for a solid P2 as it stands here, because to regain that ERS you've got to do so much lifting and coasting around here, and you lose so much time with the characteristics of the circuit when you do lift and coast around here, and 50% ERS in the name in the favour of Shazoo's Tom would suggest to me an overtake is surely inevitable.
Yeah, definitely so, and both of these guys of course are on the F1 Esports Challenger side for the PS tier, so this remains to be seen. This could be an early battle, an early indication of what we could see next week, of course, for F1 Esports Challengers, which gets going very soon indeed. I think it is to say next week. Tom on the back of Rudy's not getting quite close enough. However, though, Stardust tyres are now beginning to go off out in front. 2 seconds the gap. He's not pulling away that much of a time. He's also made a mistake, I think, into the hairpin there slightly. The timing's just glitched there slightly. But Rudy there in second, just beginning to creep into that 2 second advantage now. It was around 2 seconds, now 1.8. So Rudy, I wonder if he has got a slightly better straight line speed set up on. That is why he's beginning to gain. Scarver's tyres also beginning to go off as well. A Magician, by the way, is trying to look for Nico, but he's not close enough in towards turn 1. In fact, actually, he's under pressure from Lucas to the outside line in towards turn 1. VSR could try and pull off a 2-for-1 here if they really want to. Lucas trying to hang it all the way around the outside of turn number 1. Oh. Nico there is still there just in case, but Lucas still there on the outside line through turn number 3, and in the end, forces Magician out on the outside line, out on the dirty stuff, and Lucas through, and he's into 17th position. Every single position counts. It's critical for VSR, this one here, because Magician is going to immediately put the pressure on the VSR team, but in the end, Magician holding on, and I can't really make the move, and stays in P18. This is critical for VSR as well, because there's a bit of a mix and match happening in that midfield opportunity for VSR to earn some big points off of the back of the demise of NRX and their performance, but LeGriff is having a really good race at the moment, up in 11th, and could be on the brink
brink of some points here for the NRX team, and that's critically what they need in that battle, of course, for P4 as it stands here. Of course, P3 certainly under pressure here, and I'm just looking on the circuit at the moment, and is the rain falling, my friend? I said it was going to be around about 15, 16, you know, but it's not. It's come early, so people have gone for the medium tyre, perhaps have called it absolutely right here. So the rain is now falling. The track is now going to start to degrade with grip out there at the moment. Gap 2.1 between Rudy and Scyther. Tom, I believe, has now begun his push here, and a little bit of ERS management now beginning from Rudy, being able to get himself back up into the 20s with his ERS, but surely it is inevitable. Tom is going to get this move done, and if he can get in front, it's going to be so critical when the intermediate tyre stint is going to be happening. And in fact, Tom just wants to get it done, and he certainly does. Shazoo have got a driver in second, and Rudy is trying his hardest to go up there. He's going to understeer with the lack of track grip out there at the moment with the rain falling. He's going to try and get a switchback, but the door is completely shut. Shazoo have got a driver in second place.
Yeah, beautiful move actually there from Tom. To be fair, Rudy had the entitlement to come to the inside line. Stokey, by the way, is the first one in on a set of intermediate compounder tyres further down the field. That is way too early to come in for a set of intermediate compounder tyres. The FRA man will be ahead of Simberbox, I'll guarantee that. But if he ends up out of the race and pulls the safety car, he is not going to be the best-liked person in this lobby right now, if that does happen. But the rain is falling out on track. As I said a little bit earlier on, it will take around 2 or 3 laps to actually affect the track surface. So if that is the case, we should be seeing the rain and DRS disabled in around 2 or 3 laps time, probably around lap 8 or lap 9.
Well, Nehemiah at the moment is smelling a podium, you know, because he's getting closer and closer and closer to Rudy with those medium tyres that are definitely starting to blister on that front right at the moment. There is expectation that blistering may happen early on here, but Rudy is so down on ERS at the moment that Choco is also going to be potentially breathing down the neck of Rudy here. But Talent Factory's Legend is up to 6th now, so this is a real good opportunity for Talent Factory to get some good damage limitation here, but they have to get past Nehemiah at the moment, who is taking some big points out of the front runners here. It's going to be a good showing here from the midfield team, the WOR Esports team here, as they go through the left-hander of lap 7 of 28. Nehemiah on the brink of a podium as it stands, but he needs to keep up this pace that he's got on the medium tyre on the inters in just a few laps' time.
Yeah, definitely so, and the mediums as well, with that rain beginning to affect the track surface. It's actually the set of hards that are going to be better off in these conditions compared to the mediums, so Nehemiah will be struggling. Stokey, by the way, you can tell it is not intermediate compounder tyres. Tyne is also into the pit lane, but you can tell it's not because Simba is catching on Stokey. It's not too far off from the crossover period, actually. We should see, I think, pit stops happen probably either end of this lap or next lap or probably lap 9, as I've already mentioned. Jack there in the comment section as well saying, has Jensen got damage? I can't see visible damage, actually, for Jensen's car. I think it might be right side end plate damage, potentially, if he has got any. I think there might be a little bit of a curved winglet or something like that. It's very much light damage. Jensen there in 8th, Jonah there in 9th. Jonah is on the back of him, but the fact of the matter is, Jensen, if he has got damage, he's going to be pulling away from Jonah anyways, because those mediums are now beginning to lose their grip.
Rudy and Nehemiah are actually trading missed apexes at turn 8 and turn 9, so all of that time loss has been mitigated between each other, but unfortunately Rudy has lost a lot of time here to Shazoo Tom. Gap now 3 seconds between Tom and Scyther at the moment. Scyther starting to really eke out a gap now as PSR will look to continue on their closure of that battle at the moment with Talent Factory, but at the moment Rudy is able to just hold on, and I believe that DRS at the moment is really helping the Talent Factory driver out. Those that are on intermediate tyres right now, by the way, are going to be seething because those tyres are going to be overheating left, right and centre. The track is, I'd say, greasy, but it's not considerable for intermediate tyres just yet, I don't think. There's not even an ounce of spray being kicked up from these tyres at the moment, so arguably you'd say the medium tyre probably is the better tyre at the moment. I know that's in complete contradiction to your point here, James, saying the hard tyre might be the best tyre to be on at the moment, but I'm looking at the hard tyre runners and they're locking up on the front and the rears. We had a big lock-up actually on the rear from Rudy a little bit earlier on in this race, where the medium tyres, though that they're blistering, are able to hold on and keep the heat that little bit more here. So it's all going to be about when that crossover period really starts to come into effect, because if it happens later on, definitely the hard tyre is the bit tyre to be on, but if it's right now, it's the mediums.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, Nehemiah on the back of Rudy is looking very, very much like he's going to get this job done, but now to the middle sector, the rain is just beginning to pick up in terms of the intensity. Coming through now the left-hander of the double left of turns 9 and 10, Nehemiah is we're just beginning to see more rain on the camera lens, more rain beginning to fall in this middle sector, so the rain is intensifying out on track. Nehemiah ideally needs to get this job done now, i.e. right now, because in half a lap to a lap's time, I think it's going to be DRS disabled and everyone will be into the pit lane instead of intermediate compound tyres. And if Nemaya makes a mistake like that, what he's just done coming out the hairpin, Nemaya now put on the back foot, Choco there with 71% of ERS, by the way, is there on double the amount of ERS, and he is going to be there to try and take that fourth position off Nemaya, who Rudy nearly looks up into the back of Tom. I thought it was the other way around, as Nico as well. Speaking of that set of mediums, they are clearly the better tyre, it seems. I'm clearly wrong, as I always am. Nico through and he's into 14th.
Just keeping a very firm eye on that little battle here as Jonas also made a move as well. Jensen has decided to come in. He's had enough of these hard tyres, so it will surely be a set of intermediate tyres now. And now we know that the crossover period is still sort of happening at the moment. If it is intermediate tyres now for the Shizou driver, this is a make or break here because Shizou were on for some big points now. They've definitely got one driver at the front here with Tom, so this is a gamble for hope that Jensen maybe will be able to get to the front as well. DRS disabled. That's usually the indicator. Intermediate tyres are to be on, and Shizou may have called it absolutely beautifully. They've got one driver in second as Nehemiah is battling with Choco at the moment and is now relegated to fifth. He begins a lag spike. Legend follows with him, so Allison is going to potentially benefit from that one. So Choco now up to fourth. The front runners are all absolutely going to start to feel the effects now of being on the wrong tyre. Jensen may be able to gain ground here on those in front here. The question is, how much ground is he going to make, and is he going to be in a position to race alongside his teammate? Because Shizou may be earning big. This is a critical part of this race for Shizou.
Yeah, I think with Jensen, the crossover period is just happening now. So the crossover for him, his tyres need to get warmed up, but he's not going to gain as many positions as what I think people might be hoping for. Nemaya there, I think, got sold, by the way, to the outside line of turn number 5. Choco was on the outside line of him. I'm not quite sure what really happened between them both, but I can say that Nemaya did lock up into the side of Choco. And again, on the brakes, he's very, very late indeed. But with DRS now disabled, the leader should be coming in. Skyler is the leader, and he is into the pit lane. Tom should be in, Rudy should be in, and Rudy actually stays out. Wow, Rudy stays out is going to benefit Legend. Interesting from the Talent Factory team. Choco's in, Legend into the pit lane as well. So PSR potentially for double stack. Legend is into the pit lane. The king of the intermediate compound tyres. Will he be the king for much longer? As the yellow flag through the final corner. And then I think it's Lucas. That is man coming out through the final corner.
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of people all pitting now, leaving the pit lane for the intermediates. We're on board with Jensen as he comes across that final corner. How many positions is he going to gain? Of course, he's going to gain on people who are stuck in the pit lane as well. Tom, his teammate Tom has just left the pit lane. Here comes Shed Jensen, and he tucks in behind Legend and Choco, and he's actually within touching distance of them. That's a massive gain for Jensen and Team Shizou here, because now they've got two drivers, Shizou, battling potentially with PSR in this one, and of course Legend in that one. Critically, though, the top four all believe that it's still time for Dries only just. I'm not entirely sure why, because we've got Allison struggling, really struggling now out there at the moment. Nehemiah, I'm going to be candid with you here. WOR may have bottled a really good opportunity for a podium here by leaving Nehemiah out, because he was in a real critical position on these medium tyres to earn massive here and then go on to the intermediates with everyone else. But he's decided to stay out in touching distance with Rudy, but Rudy's only going to lose out here. So they're trusting Talent Factory all on Legend at the moment. So Rudy, who's been running riot for Talent Factory, has been left out there a little bit by the Talent Factory team. I wonder if that's actually going to cause a little bit of controversy internally within the team, I wonder. Either way, the only sort of saving grace here for Choco making that mistake on lap 1 is that they didn't need to double stack that hard, did McLaren?
No, they didn't, and Skyler there and fed. Oh my word, Legend's nearly out of control, coming through the hairpin at turn number 12. My goodness me, if there's any drifting skills on show, it's from Legend, certainly. I thought he was going to absolutely go cold brown coming through turn number 12, but in the end, Jensen cannot find him close enough. Legend is struggling on those tyres. Rudy has taken one for the team, as Francesco has mentioned that in the comment section, but Nemaya into the pit lane, Rudy in, Allison in, set of intermediates. Magician, by the way, is staying out. He's just been overtaken by Skyler, who's now the race leader.
Silly.
But where is Jensen? Jensen, actually, there's Tom, Rudy, and Nemaya are actually ahead of this pack. Nemaya is coming out right in the middle of the pack, and Choco gets caught in the inside curve. Nemaya is right there, and also Tom, I thought made a mistake there, and I think he did. Tom just made a slight mistake there, but Tom in third position. Magician there staying out on the set of hard. Very hard to keep up with, I've got to say, with the rain now falling. The Legend there on the back of Nemaya. And in the end, Nemaya has lost that position to Choco. He did take one for the team. In the end, Rudy behind Tom. I think this is a stroke of genius.
I'm not sure. Nehemiah in this one anyway relegates himself down to what would have been a prospective P5. He was on for third at one point in this race, but he has lost that one position to Choco, but stays crucially in front of Legend. He'll be absolutely livid, will Legend. Jensen, on the other hand, who nearly, and Shazoo nearly, made a really big inroads on this one, now is not going to be in the position I think they were looking for in this one. But Tom now in third place, of course, and he's trying to get that inroads and will make easy inroads at the moment on NRX Magician. I have no idea why NRX have decided not to pit Magician at the moment. It is silly to keep him out there at the moment because the conditions are quite clearly intermediate. So if he's hoping that maybe, just maybe, the rain's going to stop within the next 2 or 3 minutes and they can benefit from potentially 25-30 seconds of pitting, then fair enough. But the rain is expected potentially to continue on until the end of this race, I wonder. We'll keep an eye on that one as people have got to seriously get an understanding of their tyre grip at the moment, because that mechanical grip is massively different when you're in the intermediate conditions, and Nehemiah only just managing to hold on for P6 for that dive down the inside line. Legend nearly doing in Antonio Giovinazzi through that final corner and is able to hold on to P6, but only just.
Nehemiah, I thought, was very, very early on the brakes, and then I thought he might just pull this off to the inside line, and he did. He's there in fifth position. Legend got absolutely sold there by the Spaniard, and he's doing a fantastic job as Nehemiah. WOR really need the points, I think, coming out of this race. Diogo Silva's there in 15th as well, so they are scoring good points at this stage from the WOR perspective. Jensen, they're not too far off these guys either. But Legend just needs to calm down his Stephen a little bit. He is giving me a few moments, I've got to say. If there was a face cam on me right now, which I hope James is not going to do this on the stream. If you see my facial reactions, honestly, I am totally invested in this race, and Rudy now is on the back of Tom and trying to go around the outside at turn number 9, but he's got forced out to dry there through the left-hander of the right-hander now, turn number 8, through the left-hander, turn 9 and 10, but in the end, Rudy cannot find the way through on that move. It's going to be a matter of when, not if, really, for Rudy to get this job done. He's very late on the brakes, and he is just beginning to just overuse his tyres slightly. But Tom there in second, Rudy there in third. We've got Mr. Aggressive, normally, in Rudy, against Tom, who is going to be a very, very interesting battle. Both these, of course, F1 Esports challenges, as I've mentioned, and this could be a very good battle. Now Legends right on the back of Nehemiah, and he's going to go for move to the outside line as well, into the braking zone now of turn number 13. On the brakes goes Legend, and in the end, this time he's got the full car length ahead, and the Ferrari through, and he's in fifth.
Yeah, so now Nehemiah now relegating himself down to 6th place in that one. Rudy staying behind Tom at the moment and actually getting a bit of a beach on the curb coming out of the final corner, turn 16 for Rudy, so he stays in P3. I've got Francesco in the chat saying, let him cook, and that's in reference to Magician staying on the dry tyre. Unfortunately, if he continues cooking, he's going to find himself on the Yelp reviewers with 1 stars across the board. It was a poor strategy to stay on that dry tyre for so long, and now he falls all the way down to P18 and 5 seconds back from the VSR boy of Lucas as we get a little bit of a lag spike from Tom. That battle will continue to happen. Scyther, by the way, really starting to run right now, 5 seconds in front. Choco will be hoping that he can continue with this battle and with the 2 in front of them here. You rightfully point out here, Tom and Rudy have got a point to prove here because, of course, they've got the challenges for the PlayStation teams coming up soon. So that is going to be all about sort of pride in that little battle. And if them two continue to battle, it will be pretty critical as Nando goes for a beautiful move around the outside of turn number 7 and then going into turn 8, takes P8 out of the hands of Jonah. Great move from Outplayed Racing. It's what we expect from them.
Yeah, beautiful. I think Jonah made a slight mistake on the inside curb, and that brought Nando onto the outside line and just absolutely just smoothly sailed around the outside of Jonah. Jonah is going a little bit too deep on the brakes. He has, this game cycle, I've got to say, done very, very well with no assists. He was previously an assist driver in a league that I've commentated and I've, of course, run as well. And Jonah is proving to me he is now learning that no assist. He is still gaining in terms of his pace. He's got Allison to deal with him behind as well. The Team Valor man is not going to make it very easy indeed, because we saw with Allison in the sprint, he did a fantastic, fantastic job. Absolutely, and he'll be hoping to try and put more points on the board for the Team Valor racing team, I should say, as Rudy there gets pulled with a bit of a mistake from Tom. Rudy's right on the back of him in towards turn number 1, but I don't think Rudy is going to attempt this move, and Tom there will remain in second. Rudy there in third, and oh my word, nearly goes into the back of him. Might look towards the inside line. He's trying every little sinew to try and get the move done and put pressure on Tom, but but in the end, I think it's just more pressure than anything else.
Yeah, Choco now actually falling out of the 1 second barrier. It doesn't matter, no DRS, of course, but that will be critical in their later thinking, of course, because is he actually monitoring his tyre usage and wanting to go all the way to the end of this race? Because there could be an expectation that we could see some pit stops happening probably within the next 6 or so laps if these intermediate tyres are starting to fall off. At the moment, I'm seeing percentages into the mid-teens at the moment, so there is certainly a little bit of traction out there, and hopefully actually maintaining the grip out there in relation to the degradation. So gap 1.1 between Choco and Rudy at the moment. Rudy really still breathing down the neck of Tom. These two have been fighting tooth and nail when it comes to the mind games. Rudy really getting into the wing mirror and nearly made a mistake actually going into turn 1, as you rightfully pointed out, James. So Tom is going to be keeping a firm eye on those little challenges that Rudy's doing, because if he makes the mistake and trying to play mind games and then accidentally dives it, Choco will be very happy to take a 1-2 for PSR.
He will be. I'm looking at the rain, by the way, and I'm beginning to be a little bit convinced that the rain is actually beginning to ease off out on track. The sun is just beginning to try and break through the clouds. I'm on board with Rudy on the run down towards Tom, as Jensen's actually going to go for the move on the Meyer, I think, in towards the left-hander, or the right-hander, I should say, of turn number 13. He looks towards the inside line. Namiya's still there on the outside. He will have the extra traction on the outside of the curb, and in the end, Namiya will hold the position. Jensen there in 7th. The rain, to me, that looks like it's beginning to ease off slightly. It's got a little bit brighter, certainly. As Yona as well as through on Allison, they are having their own private score with Ryan joining that battle now as well. Stokey, I think, has just got through on Jam further down the field as well. So Stokey making his way through the field. Given that he was stopping pretty much at the back of the field, here comes Allison to the inside line.
That's
on
risky.
Yona
That's
towards
bold.
the inside line at
What
turn
a
number
move.
1. He's going to try and make that Red Bull look like a Red Bull-shaped gap. And in the end, Allison, I think, is going to try and sell the Yona. The outside dummy through turn number 3. Ryan's still in there as well to try and fight this off, but Allison in the end, beautiful piece of driving by the team Ballerman. Yona will not give this up lightly. He goes to the outside line at turn number 5. He's going to be very careful. He doesn't lock up on the brakes. He's going to be forced out on the curb. Yona is still there, though. But in the end, Allison, beautiful piece of driving he is doing. He's in tonight. And now Ryan's right on the back of these guys as well.
Personal point, I'm not a big keen fan on that one, closing the door entirely. That, though, on the other hand, is just putting your car in a place that might not exist for Ryan. So he just yields and doesn't decide to put himself under too much pressure in that battle with Jonah. But Allison up to 9th place as he continues on his endeavours to try and script some points here for Valo. It's been a really good showing, actually, from Allison. It's been wonderful to watch. A defensive masterclass, actually, from that TV8 Red Bull. Outplayed Racing's Nando still in 8th, by the way, trying to close down the gap as we've still got this battle happening with Jonah making a bit of a tank slapper. Ryan then is going to be very keen to get this move done, but he's lacking in ERS at the moment. Of course, no DRS in these raining conditions. Harvey Cohen in the chat. If these inters should go to the end of this race easily, sure, but if these traction is lower, some people may think that the 20-second pit stop is worth it. We'll have to see what these drivers decide. Either way, Outplayed Racing's Ryan is going to go for the switchback at turn 14. They do bump wheels, and the traction is a little bit smoother. He's going to go around the outside, but in the end, Jonah will cut him off, but he will have the better traction. Will Outplayed Racing's Ryan, and what is a fantastic move from the expected team of Outplayed Racing. Fantastic racing from both Nando and Ryan. Great stuff.
Absolutely unbelievable. Yona has just been sent to sleep, I think, there by Ryan. In the end, Thurney's into 10th position. Yona there in 11th. Yona, honestly, is no easy driver to get past. Ryan has just made that look very simple indeed. Not a simplistic move by any stretch of the imagination, but the OP man 30's into 10th. Beautiful job. And now the Griff, who's having his first race, by the way, in Legacy Division, he's there in 12th. He's been actually under the radar, I think, in this race. The NRX man, Magician there down in 18th, has not put his magic on this race so far, but the Griff certainly providing that magic there in 12th. He is on the back of these two. Allison not too far ahead, Nando not too far ahead, and then they're in a big old DRS train pretty much. If they all gap within for a second of each other, they're going to be within Tom, Rudy, Choco, Legend. So all of this really is one big, long train of about 10 seconds, the gap between Tom and the Griff down in 12. All of this, and these guys begin to make stake and they close up for a second of each other. That's a big old DRS train once again.
Tom making a slight mistake coming out of turn 10, by the way, so he ends up getting a bit of a tank slapper, well catches and just drifts around the corner. So loses a couple of tenths actually to Rudy in doing so. Rudy not having the best of races at the moment as regards to the grip himself, as he'll stay in 3rd and not go for what would be a hopeful dive into that corner, actually missing his apex ever so slightly, but might actually get a bit better traction out of that corner as well. As Francesco saying the question of answer the question rather of the weather at the moment. It looks like it might be drying up towards the end of this race, and I must admit I agree that rain is becoming incredibly light here. And the only issue is that in China, typically anyway, the conditions are quite humid, so it does take a while for the rain to get off of the circuit. So we may be on into the end of this race, or are we in for potentially a dry stint towards the end of this race again, I wonder. And those that elect to do the soft tyres will be super quick, but the tyres will be absolutely murdered throughout there with 11 laps to go. Anything can happen, and it usually does.
Yeah, anything can indeed happen, and it does usually happen. Diogo Silva, by the way, on the back of Jam, further down the field, 14th and 15th position. Diogo Silva trying to make ground, the Portuguese man, of course, has applied his trade, of course, last season in Console Tier 2, I think it was, of the PS side. He's there, of course, now, I think, in Console Tier 2 again, if I'm not mistaken. WOR man doing a good job here in Legacy Division side for WOR. Bit of a leg spike there again, a ball with him. Rudy there still on the back of Tom, second and third position. If the rain is to stop within the next 4 laps, I think we will get a dry period towards the end of the race. If we get to lap 21 and it's still raining, I do not think that it is going to stop raining towards the end of the race, as Diogo Silva is through, because Jam is round coming out of turn number 7, which is unfortunate for him. So Jam, unfortunately, has been caught on a marmalade sandwich and he's spun, now coming through turn 7.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just keep an eye on Tom and Rudy. And once again, Tom going to the inside, diving it back to the outside, because he doesn't want to give too much of a toe to Rudy at the moment, who, by the way, is now up into the 70% something with his ERS, while Tom, on the other hand, is still into the 60s. So they are maintaining their own races quite well at the moment. Meanwhile, Choco, near 95% ERS at the moment. So if he decides to go for a push, he's going to have so much available energy at his disposal. The question is he going to be able to break the train of Shizou's Tom, Rudy, and, of course, keep an eye out on Legend Talent Factory are on for what will be a very good race when it comes to damage limitation. Though as it stands at the moment, they're still going to be dropping points to PSR, whatever the case may be. LeGriff, by the way, making some really big inroads at the moment on Juventus Racing's Jonah, now down to 11th place. But at the moment, LeGriff, as you rightfully say, has been just sort of maintaining his own race and thinking about exactly where he wants to put his car. And so far, having a good race, actually, as the NRX drivers. We've got a spinner, and it looks like Lucas has gone for another spin. And VSR's race is going from bad to worse at the moment, as they are going to be in for certainly nil point.
Yeah, unfortunately for VSR, I think that they did well in the sprint. In the end, in the feature, I think it's just too much. They got caught up in that early carnage as well in that one. So unfortunate, I think, from Lucas' perspective. He would have had a chance, I think, certainly in this race to get a good bottom end of the point score, like 8th, 9th and 10th position. VSR, I think, are missing the trick. And of course, with LPs, Lucas actually, from bad to worse, has just left the session. So that is even worse from Lucas's perspective. But what is not bad to worse is the Griff's driving. He's on the back of Yona. Yona sliding his way back coming out of turn number 10. The Griff is all over the back of him. And for a debutant here in Legacy Division, the NRX man is doing a fantastic job, apart from locking up in towards turn number 11 there, as I ride on ball with them. But in the end, the Griff is on the back of Yona. They're just ironing out each other's mistakes. Rudy, by the way, is right on the back of Tom, and here he comes to the outside line. Now,
that's bold.
No way he's getting this job done, surely. Rudy on the inside line has surely locked up.
Great
Tom's
move.
The inside line will soul the Demi, and the Shizou man is just about through. But in the end, Rudy, he put himself in a position where he didn't need to be. He was pretty much on the grass for that move, and in the end, nearly gets spun on the outside curb through the final corner. He is on the back of Tom. But does Rudy really need to put himself in a position like that? I don't think so. No, this is
a real good masterclass of defending from Tom, to be fair to him. I think Rudy went for a gap that wasn't there. I'll leave that one for your decisions in the chat on that one, and of course the stewards, if indeed it goes to the stewards. Either way, Rudy, though, is really fighting a battle that he doesn't need to at the moment. It's all about maintaining the gap between him and Choco. At least they're going to be getting points off of Choco. That is for certain. It's just Scyther. It's just managing his own race. This is a damage limitation race here. If Rudy makes a mistake, Talent Factory in serious trouble and could end up losing out on that top step of the championship that they currently have and have had for a very, very long time. With 9 laps to go in this race, the rain is now seriously depleted to what I think is just a few raindrops. I'm starting to see very minimal falling on the circuit, and I'm expecting the rain surely is going to stop imminently, but the spray on the circuit is so substantial that we might be in for still a few more races, as Choco has made an uncharacteristic mistake of his own, and now Legend is breathing down his neck going into 10.
Yeah, he had a huge mistake coming through the left-hander there, the double left of turns 9 and 10, but Legend now all over the back of him. Rudy, to be fair, if he makes a mistake, he's going to bring his teammate completely into play. PSR are right behind. Tom is not the real worry, I think, at this stage, as now Rudy, I think, is going to go for another move. Tom is using up his EOS, though, to good effect to try and defend off this position. Rudy, though, that inside line is there if he wants it. Oh, my God, he's gone so late on the brakes. He's not getting this car stopped, surely. And Tom has just sold him once again. But again, Rudy is forcing himself into these mistakes. He's trying to put Tom under pressure, but in fact, he's putting himself under pressure, which is the last thing you want to do. It's the worst thing you want to do. However, saying that, he's on the back end once again in towards turn number 1, but he's not going to get the job done, I don't think, in towards turn number 1. For Rudy, if he keeps making mistakes, Tom has a huge lag spike ahead of him, nearly goes into the back of it, into the front of the car there. For Rudy there in third, if he keeps making mistakes like he's doing, Choco, and especially Legend, is going to be right there to capitalise. Yeah,
Rudy ended up trying to lick the stamp, sent it, realised Royal Mail was on strike, sent it via UPS, and realised it was undeliverable. On the moment, Rudy is now in a real spot of bother. If he keeps doing that, he's going to end up out of ERS, and it is so difficult to maintain your ERS levels when you're battling with 4 drivers all within touching distance. And don't forget Nehemiah as well. If anything major happens, he'll be very happy to swallow up points in what has actually turned out, despite the miss on a podium, to be a good race here for WOR, because they're going to be earning big points off of the likes of NRX. They're going to be earning big points here as we've got a car and it's out, and Jonah is out. It's lap 20 of 28. It's a precarious position, and the safety car has been deployed as a result of that crash going through turn number 5, and that will be potentially dry tyres going onto the cars later on into this race. Definitely not now, but we could be on for another mix-up here, and Scyther will be seething with a 10-second gap, now completely depleted to 0. Talent Factory smiling ear to ear.
Yeah, smiling ear to ear indeed. Somebody that isn't, there was Jonah, who was out of the race. He was driving really, really well. One mistake does catch people out. Exactly that mistake, I think, was coming through the right-hand return number 8, if I'm not mistaken. So that is unfortunate from Jonah's perspective. In the wall, safety car out on track. Worst possible thing for Skyler. Worst possible thing, I think, for everyone, because the rain is actually getting a little bit heavier out on track. I'm on board with Tom. It looks a bit heavier. The yellow flags are still out on track. The safety car, of course, is still out on track as well. They will put the leaders this lap around. But on to lap 21 out of 28. This now really, really opens things up. Talent Factory have now got a chance. If Rudy wants to put PSO under pressure, now is the chance to. Safety car brings them back into play. Legend now back in the play as well there in 5th. Everyone going to be capitalising on the safety car. The Griff, by the way, is into the pit lane. And please do not say that this is for a set of dry compounder tyres. I really hope it's not. I really hope it's going to be for a set of Inters.
It's got to be a fresh set of Inters, hasn't it, though, James? Because, the fresh set of Inters on a race restart, you know what, it's an absolutely fantastic release that he was leading from the front on that one. That is the case there. But either way, no dry tyres are going on. We don't expect more people electing to go onto a fresh set of intermediate tyres. I know one person certainly will be considering that one will be Lucas. He himself, of course, disconnected from this race earlier on. The safety car came out and suddenly his car reappeared. So he's definitely back in this race now. An opportunity for VSR to earn big points. Actually, Nico in a good position now, up to 11th place in this one here, to say the least here. It's going to be very fun times, to say the least. Scyther then in first place from Tom, from Rudy, from Choco, from Legend, Nehemiah in 6th, Jensen in 7th from Nando, Allison and Ryan rounding out the top 10. VSR now suddenly on the brink of some points potentially here with Nico, but he's got the Griff on fresh intermediate tyres. I'm going to be keeping a very firm eye on that NRX driver, because suddenly NRX's race has just come to life.
Yeah, it has indeed. He's on that he's gained one position basically out on track with Griff. There'll be a lot more positions, I think, getting gained out on track. I'm on board with Skyler, though. That rain, again, I said it was getting a little bit heavier. I'm now not convinced it's actually changing at all. It looks like it's getting lighter again out on track. It's just the speed, I think, the speed change where the drivers are going at. But Skyler leading the way from Tom there in 2nd, Rudy there in 3rd. And most positions gained, by the way, early on. Nico, 6 positions on lap 22 out of 28. He has gained 4 positions gained for Ryan, 7 though gained for Jam. He's gained the most positions, I think, because everyone has came in the pit lane, and he is still, I think, on that on that older set of intermediate compounder tyres. Everyone pretty much making 2 stops as well, apart from the top 10 or the top 11, who have made 1 stop, including Jam as well, who has stayed out. Everyone else has made a 2 stop in this race as well. But with the Griff there down in 12th position, he has honestly given this a brilliant go, I think, in terms of going on this fresh set of Inters. They're going to be so much fresher in terms of the tyre wear. They could be even up towards about 40% fresher than the guys ahead. If that is the case, the Griff's going to carve his way through the field. But from 12th position, I think he'll get into the points, but I don't think he'll get for like top 5, top 6 sort of finish.
Quick look then at the standings. Then this is of course the pre-sprint race. Whilst everyone is behind the safety car, here we are. So Talent Factory on the 232. They've got 2 drivers, 3rd and 5th. Then you've got PSR on 219, 1st and 4th. Choco is one of those drivers that will be keeping a very firm eye on what happened on lap 1. He doesn't want to replicate that, because if he does, he's going to fall deeply down those standings, and is obviously on a charge at the moment to try and get those big points. If he can overtake Rudy, that would be massive for PSR in this one, because they could end up taking the lead in the championship. Also worth making note, Shazoo, the 6th place team on 70 points, are earning massive points off of Nexus as it stands at the moment, and could end up in 5th place as a result. VSR have got a driver in 11th at the moment on the brink of points as well, but they have got a little bit of a buffer between them, Shazoo and Nexus. Juventus are struggling at the moment, one driver out, one in 17th, which means Team Valor could end up earning some big points through Allison on 27 points now. Team Valor, Juventus on 32. WOR Esports earning big points off Nehemiah at the moment, and SLR are currently, they've got one driver in 13th, so we're hoping that SLR Jam could be earning some big points for them as they try and rise up the standings. We're back live with the footage then here, and we are on lap 23 of 28 laps. 5 laps to go behind the safety car. The safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap, whatever happens. Lucas is just coming around turn 14 as it stands. He'll be at the back of the queue very shortly, but it is very much going to be an intermediate race to the end here, as the rain is now, I believe, starting to get heavier again.
It is beginning to get heavier again out on the track, and the rain is definitely setting in here in China. Is it going to be a classic Chinese Grand Prix? Who knows what is going to happen, I think, in the final 6 laps, including this lap, of course, under the safety car. Tom, to be fair, has done a fantastic job. He's on the back of Skyther, but I can honestly see Skyther pulling away towards that 10-second advantage that he had. The PSR team are doing a fantastic job. As it stands, I'm currently doing the maths very quickly in my head, is that Jensen and Nehemiah have had a switcheroo in terms of positions. Not sure what went on there. Not sure if one went ahead of the other, but Nehemiah's back in 6th, Jensen there in 7th. But currently as it stands, Rudy and Legend, they will be picking up 25 points as it stands. Skyler there and Choco will be picking up 37. The gap was 13 points coming into tonight. It was 5 points coming into the sprint race. I believe, if my maths is right, I think it's going to be a 7-point advantage for PSR going into the break week and the transfer window.
Well, caught me napping there, James. Just having water on that one. Safety car, as predicted, in at the end of this lap then, folks. So we're going to be in for a 5-lap dash to the end of this race, including, of course, the 24th lap that we're about to start, which is going to make for a very interesting set of events. Ladies and gentlemen, and those who don't identify, we're in for a 5-lap sprint to the end of this race. Safety car just now going down the main straight. So Scyther will lead the 19 drivers down this straight. Of course, it'll be up to him to elect when he wants to go, for as long as that he sets off before, after the safety car enters the pit lane. Now, of course, they will have some kind of limitation on their accelerator pedal, so they don't want to go too early, because otherwise they may find themselves in trouble. But Scyther, very keen to leave it looks like here, quite late to go here. He's now going into turn 14. The safety car still not in the pit lane. It's just entered now. So safety car, it looks like to me, he's going to be going a little bit late here. We'll see if he does end up catching Tom napping here. Tom could really do with getting a good start here, because Shazoo are on for some massive points here. Here comes then through the final corner, and Scyther hasn't really caught Tom napping. We go green again here in China, and Tom is now trying to defend here from a battle here from Rudy, who does get caught napping a little bit, I suspect here. So Choco might be on the fringes of causing an error. An error from Rudy going into turn 1 is going to allow Choco to breathe down his neck, but not the best restart from Choco. Doesn't look like PSR were in sync on that restart here. If they were, he might have had a podium at least here for Choco, the pole sitter, but he stays in 4th.
Yeah, Rudy taking the outside line, I think, just to get better traction. Actually caught Choco napping coming on the exit of turn number 2. And Choco now 4 tenths down off him. There's battles further down the field, by the way. LeGriff is actually under pressure. Actually pressurising Nico in toward the left-hander now of turn number 5, or the right-hander, I should say. Turn number 5, LeGriff gets the job done. Nico's still there. Stokey's still there as well. And Stokey actually has got to go all the way around the outside of LeGriff at turn number 7. And he was 3 positions back off the safety car restart. And now he's ahead of LeGriff. Brilliant stuff. Oh, and he's gone straight on and is actually lagging all over all the place, the FRA man. He's there in 11th, LeGriff there in 12th, and Stokey, unfortunately, has had a lag spike once again. I think he'll be at the session.
That'll be desync, I think, because he's now back in 11th place in all of this scenario. So there's desync happening, but he's in 11th still in that battle. And there he is now up in 11th place, battling with LeGriff, who stays in 12th. And remember, them two are on fresh intermediate tyres, so they should be making inroads on those in front. But at the moment, they're not. We've still got Stokey apparently 2.7 seconds in front of Ryan, despite the fact that he's actually behind. There he is there, look. So that desync is going to become quite a common factor here that we think we'd expect with a common Codemasters L. Outplayed Racing's Ryan. Oh my goodness me, Stokey was so late on the brakes, got caught napping, and there's a massive desync, and he spins LeGriff out as a result, and LeGriff has been caught out, spun out by a completely lagging TV8 driver, and I'm wondering if the stewards are going to be knocking on the door here of TV8 to say, I think it's time Stokey retires the car, because that is more than just desync as a relation to the, I think, various issues we've seen in this lobby. That looks to me in more relation locally to the TV8 driver. Either way, I'm sure the drivers will be very keen to make sure that they get then answers on a postcard unknown here, because LeGriff was on such a good race and now he's at the back. While this is happening, by the way, Magician is battling with Tidgeon for 15th.
He is indeed. Diego Silva is actually the one under pressure from Magician. Magician is trying to work his magic to get this job done towards the inside line. Oh my word, he's absolutely late on the break. Stokey is lagging so much. He needed to actually cascade into this battle. But Magician now through and he's into 14th. Great job on the brakes. Diego Silva now in 15th. And now Lucas all of a sudden is off controlling out of the car. I'm not sure what happened at the time. I'm not sure if there was contact there between them both. But regardless, Lucas is down in 17th. Time now through and he's into 16th. Doing a good job for the Aventus Racing team. But Skyler leads the way. Tom in second, Rudy in third. 3.5 laps to go. Stokey there now in 10th position ahead of Ryan all of a sudden. So I don't know how he's got up there so quickly. He might have just been making the moves. Allison now the one under pressure. His internet looks like it's sorted itself out, but I'm still not convinced.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if TVA are going to tell Allison, get out of the way. Stokey could end up taking you out accidentally here. But either way, he does get the move done, and I think that is purely just the mechanical grip. 4-lap old intermediates versus 15s. I tell you what, Allison is looking like he's defending it. No, he drops it into 7th, so he doesn't look like he's going to battle here with Stokey. Despite being the fastest TVA driver in this race, he is now behind his teammate, now into 9th place. But again, TVA may end up having the stewards knocking on their door surrounding that incident involving LeGriff. It was definitely a desync. The question is, are they going to deem it as a result of a localized issue or as a result of a common Codemasters L? Jensen is in 7th place, by the way. Wasn't able to make any inroads in that restart, so he stays in 7th. Nehemiah is still in 6th place and now out of what would be a prospective DRS territory if indeed it does dry up. Whilst this is all happening, by the way, a dry line is really starting to form on the circuit at the moment here, despite the fact it's still raining. 2 laps to go. That could make for some very interesting scenario, because the braking zone is now completely different, as I think Rudy knows, because he's just missed his apex.
And right into the inside line of Allison. Oh, Allison very late in terms of the defence there for the Team Ballard Racing team. Try and defend off Ryan, who, by the way, is on 2 lap older tyres than him, and he was trying to go to the inside line of turn number 5 there. But in the end, Allison in 10th, Ryan there in 11th, doing a good job. And Rudy, as you mentioned there, in 3rd. He's just beginning to lose his cool slightly. He's just beginning to get himself under pressure. When he steps out that zone and steps out that mentality, Rudy honestly can be a very good driver when he steps and literally snaps back in to that mentality. Stokey there right on the back of Nando as well. He's trying to loop it back to the inside line of turn number 11 now, out the hairpin at turn number 12, and he's going to have that inside line. If he fits this Red Bull up that inside gap, I tell you what, would be a phenomenal move. The rain is just beginning to stop as well. Out on track with Nando, the sister cars side by side, and Nando in the end, much better traction. Stokey in the end, absolutely no response. Whatever issue it was, it sorted itself out. Hobby Cameron there saying in the chat, truly if it's every week he can't keep racing. It might be the case, but regardless, Stokey, his internet now seems fine on my end, certainly, and he's still there in 9th on the back of Nando.
Crucially, the rain did look like it had stopped going down the straight into turn 14, but in the first sector it's still raining at the moment, albeit very light. So Choco is now 1.1 back on Rudy. He'll be wondering, it'll be a game of what if, really, for Choco, because he knew he was in touching distance of taking that victory tonight, but that turn 5 lap 1 incident means that he is now down and off of the podium as it stands at the moment. What a race it's been from Shizou Tom, though, with 1.5 bit laps to go now. He is still in 2nd place and holding back Rudy here. Choco, despite despite being in 4th place, is a good team result here for PSR, because now they're still going to be taking a good chunk of points out of the Talent Factory team, but it's critical that Choco stays in front of Legend, as we've got a bit of a move from Stokey there on a battle with Nando. Stokey is making some serious inroads on these fresh intermediate tyres, but again, I have to ask the question of that incident with LeGriff. Is that potentially a factor? I don't know. He is losing the rear ever so slightly, but that's because he's pushing, because he knows he's got the grip.
Honestly, I watched that with Stokey. No lag involved, inside line, late on the brakes. That is how you pull off a move around in China. Stokey through and he's into 8th position. He was having slight lag through turn number 1. It's sorting itself out now. It might only be through the first sector that he's got that, but out of the first sector split, absolutely sent it to the inside line on Nando. Nando got done for chips. Stokey through and he's into 8th, and now on the back is Zoo Jensen, who was very much under pressure, much better traction out the corner. Stokey now on the back. The rain, by the way, has now stopped out on track. I can traditionally say that onto the final lap of the race. Not going to get dry conditions, of course, towards the end of the race. Stokey there on the back of Jensen, got that move done. In the end, now just beginning to lag slightly. It just seems localised at this stage. Magician as well on the back of Jam to the inside line, trying to force the move, the Aston Martin. And I think he's just going to pull it off with the Williams. The Williams that's still on the outside line, but Magician, much fresher tyres, should have this move. To be fair, Jams up the inside line into turn 15. And just about holds the position, holds the car to perfection as well. Still on the outside line. Rudy as well, and on the back of Tom is getting going up the back, the front end of the field. The Magician can't find a way past Jam further down the field onto the final lap.
Rudy is putting a bit of pressure now on Tom. Tom is starting to feel that pressure because he's using up a lot of his ERS to stay in front of Rudy. Gap now 1.2 between Scyther and Tom as a result of that one. Choco is going to try and defend here from Legend, but Legend is starting to get really close now to the back of that PSR driver, as Jensen and Stokey going for a little bit of a battle here. This is for P7 now. Stokey's making some serious inroads and gets the move done around the outside of that corner, and he'll have the inside line, no problem at all. And with those fresh intermediate tyres, it's looking more and more likely that move is going to be done and dusted. So he stays now into 7th in what could be and probably will be the maximum he will achieve. Nehemiah maybe just be a little bit too far for Stokey in that little battle there. So Scyther will lead from the front. Rudy is trying his hardest to get closer to Tom. It's a critical points position here for Rudy if he can get P2 out of the hands of Tom here, and that would obviously allow Talent Factory at least to defend more points in that battle in the championship. Lap 28 of 28. We're on the final couple of corners in this race here, and it will be all done and dusted. Rudy is using up all of the ERS he's got available here. These two are going to be battling hammer and tong in the PS5 championship for the challengers. Rudy's going to go down the inside line though. He hasn't missed his braking point this time, and they're still banging wheels going around that final corner, but Tom has got the traction, and surely Rudy's just going to have to concede. It's going to be P3 on this occasion. He goes for the switchback. Scyther will come across the line to take the checkered flag and take victory for PSR. Tom will finish in 2 from Rudy on 3. Choco in 4th with Legend in 5th. Nehemiah will finish in 6th place from Stokey, who was only 1/10 behind Nehemiah in the end in that one. Jensen in 8th, Nando in 9th, and Allison will get a double points finish for TVA. Outplayed Racing will finish then in 11th with Ryan. And what a race that certainly has been, James.
It was an unbelievable race, I think, in terms of the driving standards. Rudy, in the end, I think he tried to go for the switchback out the final corner. I think 99% of you in the chat certainly would have tried that move yourselves if you were in the lobby. Rudy, in the end, couldn't find the job done. He couldn't get the job done on Tom. Tom there in 2nd. Could that perhaps be a sign of things to come for F1 Esports Challengers next week? Who knows? But a fantastic race here in Legacy Division, and Skyther in the end side his way to the top step of the podium. A fantastic win from the PSR perspective. Really got that move done, by the way. It would have only been 2 points, but it's 5 points, it seems, separating between PSR and Talent Factory going into the break period, of course. But Skyther takes the win. PSR now, for the first time in quite a while, championship leaders in Legacy Division.
If that's the case, then that is what it is going to be for the PSR boys, as Talent Factory are looking now in desperate need to try and hold on to that title, because as it stands, there it is. 33 points for Scyther, 20 points for Choco, and in the end it will only be 32 points for the Talent Factory team, and that will see them, we think, drop to second place in the standings. Of course, all of that will be confirmed over on our Twitter at WOR League _. Keep an eye on that one. For now, though, Scyther is the winner of this race from Tom Rudy, rounding out the top three, as we just saw. Choco, Legend, Jensen, Nehemiah from Stokey, Lucas and Allison. And then out of the top 10, Nando and Outplayed Racing's Ryan just missing out there in the points for the third place team. VSR Nico missing out from Magician, Jam, Diogo Silva, Tijan, LeGriff, Simbarox 1 rounding out the finishing 19 drivers, and of course Jonah DNF from this race earlier on. What a race it was in the end, James. Your thoughts?
Yeah, fantastic race. Unbelievable racing as well from all of the guys. Ryan unlucky as well to get P10 in the end. Only 800ths of a second separating. Only 900ths of a second separating Tom and Rudy for second position. Fantastic race. I hope we get to see more of that for Legacy Division. I believe as well next week is a break week for the transfer window. Then I believe we are going to be back in 2 weeks' time, if I'm not mistaken, for because I think it is another break week, if I'm not mistaken, on the 25th. So until, well, May time, I think Legacy Division will be on a little bit of a break period, certainly for challenges and certainly for the final transfer window of the season.
Certainly, and that will be the position that we're going to be in, as everyone can take a break, take a breather and relax, as we've got 4 rounds of racing left in Legacy Division. We have a new championship leader. Can they hold on? We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for what will be another interesting race in WOR Legacy. See you soon. Bye-bye for now.